For what profit is it to a man if he gains the world but loses his own soul? Matthew 16:26, I believe. These are the iconic lines spoken by Tepish Vlad Dracula at the end of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Here, he laments how his own ambition to take over the world led him down a path of destruction and alienation from his son Alucard, the only family he has left. This passage is a declaration of how one's own ambition could lead them to losing sight of what's important in life. Maybe it's not about the destination, the end goal, the glory of achieving something great, but maybe it's okay to let go of ambition if it means protecting one's own soul. And funny enough, the speedrun world record for Castlevania Symphony of the Night currently sits at 16 minutes and 26 seconds. Truly ironic that the greatest speedrunning achievement for this game is spiritually tied to a lesson about ambition and its consequences. Anyways, I just found a skip that completely breaks this game forever. In this video, I'll explain how it is that Symphony of the Night speedruns have been changed forever by breaking through what was thought to be the final impossible barrier. To put things into perspective, I made a video a while back about the largest barrier in SotN speedrunning, and how it was unlikely to ever be broken, that being the global clock cycle all speedruns have to contend with, the clock rush. In Dracula's castle, there's one room that's importance reigns above all others, the central clock room. In the very center of the castle, this room branches off into many paths, but for speedrunners, the most important one is the path upward towards Alrox's quarters, as it leads directly to the Colosseum and the Form of Mist relic. This relic is required to get the most important relic in the entire game, the Soul of Bat. This is a relic that gives you access to the bat form, which can fly around and more importantly, can wing smash. This spell lets the player fly quickly through rooms at the cost of 8 MP per cast, and is the core movement option for almost all speedruns of Symphony of the Night. However, the path up to Alrox's quarters is blocked by a statue that moves in and out of place every other minute. On odd-numbered minutes, the statue will block the path forward, and on even-numbered minutes, the player can pass through. The fastest cycle ever performed by humans was a sub-8-minute cycle. Here, runners would rush to the Wolf relic, which grants players the height required to enter Alrox's quarters, and would return to the clock room in under 8 minutes. So for Symphony of the Night speedruns, there was no real way to save time in the first 8 minutes of the run, as no matter how fast your speedrun was up to this point, you would be stopped by the clock room until at least 8 minutes have passed. It had been theorized for years that if someone was able to perform the clock rush at near perfect execution, it could just barely be possible to beat the 8-minute cycle and catch the tail end of the 6-minute cycle, skipping the need to wait for the statue to move. This is known as the sub-7 clock rush cycle. For reference, the fastest I was ever able to perform the clock cycle was 7 minutes and 9 seconds, meaning I would have to wait 51 seconds before the clock would open to continue the speedrun, unless I was able to find another 10 seconds to save. Well, that was my fastest run, until recently. See, a long time ago, I had theorized that maybe task level execution wouldn't be necessary if new skips were found and implemented into the route, anything that could save an extra 10 seconds. But then I realized, maybe I don't need any new skips, but instead, maybe I needed an old one? One of the oldest known skips in Castlevania Symphony of the Night is known as the Big Toss Death Skip. This trick is exclusive to a luck mode playthrough of the game, which requires entering this name code on the file select screen before starting a new game. This Easter egg was put in by the developers to give the players a sort of hard mode option to replay the game with lower stats but a higher chance to get rare item drops. However, they didn't realize that players would take advantage of the lack of starting HP to help make the game easier. Whenever Alucard takes damage for more than half of his total HP, he gets sent flying indefinitely until he either hits a wall or a ceiling. This is called a Big Toss, and players have been abusing this damage boost for over 2 decades to fly past the cutscene where death normally takes away the player's overpowered starting gear. The thing is, skipping past death and keeping our starting gear is something that speedrunners have been able to do without needing to play in luck mode. By using a glitch called a reverse shift line, speedrunners can skip death, keep the powerful starting gear, and have way better strength and magic for the rest of the run. However, I realized that skipping death isn't the only reason to attempt this big toss in a speedrun. See, big tosses are fast. Like, really fast. After some testing, I found that utilizing 2 big tosses early in the run could save around 15 seconds in travel time compared to moving normally, which should be just enough time to make the sub-7 clock rush not just theoretically possible, but practical to perform in a real speedrun. So I set out to do some more testing, and that's when this happened. Wait, am I about to sub-7? Oh! Oh. I wasn't preparing for this in testing. Oops. That run finished with a time of 16 minutes and 48 seconds, which wasn't breaking any records, but it was the first time a human was able to beat the sub-7 clock rush, and beat the largest barrier in SotN speedrunning history. So playing in luck mode has huge potential to save nearly a minute of time save compared to the current world record, but many things would need to change in the route to accommodate for playing in luck mode. So here is a brief explanation of all the changes that need to be implemented in the new luck mode route. If you want more context on how the world record using the previous route works in detail, I have a video explaining that run that I linked in the description. So yeah, this is the luck mode code. So the main reason why this saves time is because you actually start with worse stats after the prologue when playing in luck mode. This is probably where most resets are going to be because you need really good damage stacks in order to get the time save that you need. I'll keep going even though these damage stacks aren't great, just to showcase the run in its entirety. A damage stack refers to a glitch that randomly happens if you throw a holy water on the ground while Hydro Storm is active, where it will do massive amounts of damage to Dracula, killing him quicker than normal. The difference between getting perfect damage stacks and no stacks is a little over 5 seconds, making the beginning part of this run require good luck in order to actually continue. The odds of getting perfect damage stacks is about 1 in 8, meaning that 7 out of 8 times you're not even starting a run past the first 30 seconds, making the beginning of the run much more reset heavy than before. So from here, the run is pretty similar. We kill the first warg, but immediately at the second warg, we're going to be doing what's known as a big toss. Here we try and land on the ceiling because the ceiling animation is faster than hitting a wall. We kill those 3 bats to set up experience because our experience route is now quite different compared to the old run. We do grab the pot roast so we can heal, do another big toss. Whilst in the big toss animation, we do have to re-equip our Alucard sword because this big toss will get us past death. This is our version of death skip. However, once you're past death, you cannot pause the game or open the map until you leave the area because the game still thinks that you're in a cutscene. Right here, we're actually skipping grabbing the Cube of Zoe because it saves about 3 seconds in animation and movement. And in this run, we don't need the Cube of Zoe. The Cube of Zoe is only used for fighting Doppelganger quickly, but since we started in luck mode, we actually won't have enough hearts to defeat Doppelganger using the stopwatch. Next up is the fight with Sagar and Gaibon, which is incredibly similar, so long as you don't get any critical hits. The only difference is you don't do enough damage to double kill them in the air, so you have to double kill them on the ground. But yeah, this skips a level up animation right here. If you don't get the double kill, you get an extra level up animation, which is bad. So like I said earlier, we don't have access to the stopwatch. So because we don't have access to the stopwatch, we do have to fight Doppelganger slightly differently. Normally we would just use the stopwatch and kill him quickly like that. Instead, it's optimal to kind of just fight him normally. It's kind of weird. As long as you get the first hit, you can stun lock him very easily, but getting that first hit is kind of awkward because Doppelganger will read your inputs and slash at you faster than you're able to slash at him. It's important to note our stats are worse. However, the Alucard sword and Dragon Helm together, they're so powerful that the lack of stats doesn't really matter. There's a couple of boss fights that are slightly slower, but that's about it. There we go. That's a frame perfect floor clip that saves about a second, which at this rate, every second matters. Now from here, there are 2 different routes you can do. If you were a little bit slow throughout the clock rush, you can just leave this area entirely and go back to the clock room from here. Or if you have about 5 seconds of time to spare, you can go for this wolf jump here, which costs about 5 seconds, but it gets you a garnet. And getting the garnet here saves about 18 seconds compared to the alternate strat. So you're sacrificing 5 seconds to save 18 seconds later. If you were too slow and you would miss the cycle, it's not worth grabbing the garnet. Instead, there is a backup that I'll show off. So if you did it perfectly, you can skip the cycle entirely and end up where you're here in under 7 minutes. So that's where most of the time save comes in, is not having to wait that minute. For the longest time, the fastest cycle possible was under 8 minutes. But recently with these new time saves, the cycle is now practically under 7 minutes. If you didn't go fast enough to grab the garnet, you do have to take a 15-second time loss right here to break open this breakable wall, grab the second pot here, which is an onyx. The onyx doesn't sell for as much as the garnet, but it is still a sellable gem, so we can still use it for shop glitch like we would normally. Now that we're past the clock rush, the run is very, very similar. The only differences from this point is a handful of things that are different because of luck mode. For example, we don't have enough magic to perform the soul steal double kill on Minotaur and Werewolf. So instead, we have to kill them by just slashing our sword, which loses about like 1.5 seconds, to be honest. It's pretty slow in comparison. If we get crits, it helps because we can kill them slightly faster. But I think we have to do 1 extra sword swing on the Minotaur and Werewolf if you don't get crits, which does slow down this fight a decent amount. Plus, the lack of double kill slows it down even more. From here, this is where things get a little bit weird. Still need to do book jump like normal. Hope for good pattern, make it up here. We still grab the fairy card and we still do the shop glitch. It's exactly the same. We need the fairy to talk to us. Enter the librarian's cutscene, skip it. Now, the main difference here is whether you picked up the onyx or the garnet, right? But now from here, we have to make enough money to buy all the items that we need. And even if you're optimally like mashing this menu to sell things faster, you still lose 3 seconds in sell time between garnet and onyx because the onyx just sells for less. From here, the menu is exactly the same. 1 mana prism, 2 buffalo stars, and the duplicator is all you need. After performing Shop Glitch, the next goal is to fight Lesser Demon and collect the Soul of Bat. However, the fastest way to get there relies on a luck-dependent damage boost. This was always true of the previous route, but now the potential for getting bad RNG wastes even more time than before. You have about a 40% chance to get the best RNG, and if you get the best RNG, you save a lot of time, otherwise this room sucks. And that's what that looks like. You just get big tossed all the way to the edge of the screen. And optimally, for a world record run, you would be still going for this floor clip. And you can still set up at this ledge and do it exactly the same as you did before. Once you're in the floor, this is where things get different. The world record does a route where I refill my mana only once during this section. However, in luck mode, you do have to refill your mana twice. So the way this works is you have to transform into wolf, which warps you down, refill your mana, and then go for some wing smashes. And then you have to refill a second time. And if your MP is bad, you do lose a little extra time here, but you lose about 3 seconds compared to how the world record does it, but it's still faster than the alternative, which is using a library card to leave there anyways. From here, the movement is incredibly similar. The only difference is now you have to be very careful to not lose too much MP every time you missed bat. There are 2 different ways to mist bat. Like right there, you saw I lost a chunk of magic by transforming into bat. That's because every time you mist bat, if you do it too slow, you lose 10 MP. Versus if you mist bat faster, you don't lose any magic at all. So you have to be very clean and deliberate with your mist bats. Otherwise, you lose magic. So all of your mist bats essentially have to be perfect. Regardless, that becomes much more important now compared to any percent, where that was still important in any percent standard mode. Now it's even more important because you have much less magic to work with. That's the main downside to luck mode in general, is throughout the run, you have much, much, much less magic. So all of the strats have to account for that. So in the clock tower, the movement is essentially the same. There is one major difference. All of the possible time saves are the same. Like for example, skipping that mist bat, you can still do. Bonking on that cog, you can still do. The only difference is this gap skip, going through this area right here and continuing onward, is not possible in luck mode. You don't have enough magic to do it, which is very unfortunate. So instead, you do have to go through this section normally. And by normally, I mean you have to do what is considered a backup strat. Richter skip is exactly the same. You could choose to do breakless, which does save a little bit of time if you get it first try, but it's still hard as heck. Or you could still do the version of Richter skip where you break the brick up there and then set up for the different wolf jump. This one right there. Both are the same, and you should have enough magic to wing smash through and not soft lock and skip Richter like normal. From here, the movement is actually the same as the world record. However, there is a strat that was theorized by Talic Zealot where you could save time by not untransforming from this section. You can do the entire section with one continuous wing smash chain, essentially. We don't have enough magic for that. It's not possible. It was also insanely difficult to do in standard mode, so I never went for it. Talic was able to get it relatively consistent, though. So I think with practice, it would have been implemented eventually if the world record wanted to get lowered even more in standard mode. But now with luck mode, that strat isn't possible. So instead, we just do what has been done and what is done in the world record. So from here, the strat is the same, which is nice. You have just barely enough magic to make it to this checkpoint. Refill your magic like you would normally, and then wing smash through this area. And now in the second castle, all of the strats are identical. And the only time difference is about 2 seconds on Minotaur and Werewolf. You lose about 3 seconds on the floor clip, and then you lose another 3 seconds on Clock Tower. So it's actually about an 8-second difference. Unfortunately, there was no big tosses that could be routed into the second castle movement to help save time, because it turns out just wing smashing is really, really fast. Big tossing is only slightly faster, and you do get locked into this slow animation after the big toss is over. So because of that, there aren't very many big tosses that are even like in contention to possibly save time. So instead, the movement becomes incredibly similar, if not exactly the same, for the second castle. Are crits tied to luck? The potential damage you can do with a critical hit is tied to luck, but the chance of getting a critical hit is not tied to luck. At least that's like the super duper simplified version of how crits work in this game. And there we go. That's the new route. The clock cycle being skipped saves the most amount of time. We lose about 8 seconds over the course of the rest of the run, but that's the fastest possible route by far, is getting the garnet whilst doing luck mode. Standard mode could also potentially get sub 7. However, standard mode, saving enough time and getting the garnet does not seem viable right now unless another major skip is found in the clock rush. Luck mode saves enough time that it is humanly viable to do luck mode runs and not just get sub 7, but also get sub 7 whilst still acquiring the garnet. It's within human execution. It's just hard, but it's not the hardest thing I've ever done. I want to put in perspective how big of a change this is for Symphony of the Night speedrunning. The first world record to take advantage of the 8-minute cycle happened all the way back in 2012. And finally, over 10 years later, that cycle has finally been broken. And now, with all of this new time save available, I was able to perform this run. How far behind am I? 2.6. I'll keep going. If you just go fast enough, he doesn't get you. Oh, I need to kill that guy. Ooh, my muscle memory. I have to fight against freaking years of muscle memory. Because if you're close enough, you can just slash him. Otherwise, I have to do this. It was like slightly slower. Yeah, I don't have enough time to grab the garnet. We'll skip it for now and just keep doing the run. Yep. Just barely getting it. Yo, those crits were insane! You're supposed to slash that guy 7 times. I only slashed him 5. Hello, book. That was a little scary, not gonna lie. Well, that's a lot of time loss. Ugh. Yo, the perfect bonk. Third try, baby. No, I wing smash! Yeah, I've been like dropping wing smashes in some weird ways. Really? I thought I had more time to save than that. 16:24. Technically world record, but so bad. So bad. The 16:26 is officially dead. So it just goes to show there's so much more time to be saved in this stupid, silly category. But I'm still not done. I plan on continuing to push the world record time down using this massive new time save. And if you want to join me on this journey, you can watch me attempt to break the world record again live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/dragonblitz. I don't plan on stopping until I get my goal time of 15:36. And I also wanted to say, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. And so does all of my Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for helping make these videos possible, and a special thanks to Immortal Demon, Barnabas de Grey, Toby Bear, Crazy Four Blades, Arocado, Mr. Cigar, Lieutenant CYX, Clint, Soma Jean, TJ Foster, Atomic Dracula, Suchioto, Kenneth, Chaosvania, Jokum Palm, and WJB.